it's the stress, almost always. But in American English, stress timing is what tells us in words like record and record, progress and progress. That is what's going to tell us which ones of those two words we're referring to. But we use stress timing in a lot of other places. And so that's where it can really get confusing for somebody who, or those coming out of language that don't use it. Okay. Now, listen to this sentence. I never said she stole my money. 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 Every one of those sentences means something different.
Wow. That's a really good example.
Right?
Wow.
Every single one of those sentences, every way I said that sentence means something different. And that's all about stress timing. And every word in that sentence can be stressed to change how you mean what you mean from this. Okay? If you look at it just on paper or on the board, it has a very flat meaning. But stress timing can come in and create a lot of sentences out of that one sentence. Okay? And that's where you really have to look at what's going on in stress timing.
That's pretty subtle.
Hmm?
That's pretty subtle.
Yeah, but it's significant.
It is.
And we do that all the time.
It is significant.
We use inflection and stress to focus on certain aspects of the sentence that are really stated more by how we stress the words than the words we use. So we have to be very careful with things like that. And they need to understand that difference between what that stress timing is doing. Okay. Oh, I did put an example of the from Kikongo on the tonal aspect of their language. Mambala is time. Mambala is yam. So where the lack of the stress on the second on the first A changes the two words. Something else that you need to look at whenever you're whenever you're looking at stress timing is the intonation that's attached to questions, because questions in American English inherently move up at the end, and even though a horrible speech pattern that we're seeing in kind of teenage and young adult women right now is that tilt, that lilt at the end of sentences, and it sounds like everything they are saying is in a question, and every sentence ends on an up, and it's really confusing, and it's kind of bizarre. So that stress at the end of a sentence and what the inflection is doing at the end, that's something else that you'll need to work on whenever you're working with your students. Okay? Now to the big one, number 8 on this, is what's going on with vowels. And that's, like I said earlier, they have 5. We have 24, they have 5. And that's what they sound like. All of the A's is the ah in father. The E is the e in bed. The I is the E in ski. The O is like our OR in north. And the U is like the double O in soon. So they have A, E, O, and U. so everything that they are going to be, every vowel that they look at, they're going to try to attach to one of those 5 sounds. And so that's where you're going to have the biggest amount of work that you're going to need to be working on. So like that short I in bid, it is going to become bead. They're going to want to make it that long E. The short is going to shift. Oftentimes it's going to shift closer to a long A. So bed or bed and may come out bade, or bade may come out bed. And so they're going to be trying to making those shifts back and forth. A lot of the R influenced vowels are going to just drop the R. Okay, that's going to be a very common pattern. The R influenced, the ear, air. Okay. So that R changes how we pronounce a lot of our letters. It creates part of a diphthong. And so the R colored vowels often are going to be, the R is just going to disappear, or they're going to try to pronounce it separately. Okay? They may try to attach it into a different syllable. Okay? Another problem that you're going to run into is the fact that a lot of their combinations are syllables are created with a consonant and a vowel, or a consonant and a pair of vowels. But what you're not going to see a lot of are consonant blends. And so you're going to see a pattern of trying to attach a vowel between the letters. And like in their case where they have Mabuna, which is a type of fish. Anybody who has aquarium fish knows Mabuna cichlids. That's what I have, actually. They come out of the Nile River Valley. But they're going to put kind of an sound in there. It's understood to exist. It's not, they're not trying to make a consonant blend out of the MB. It's a mba, and so the exists in the word. But what happens whenever you have a word like that is they're going to try to put that in there. Okay? And so instead of stole, where you get the consonant blend sta, it's a to. So they're going to put a vowel in between. Some of these get really tricky. Where strawberry becomes seto-ra-ba-ray, because they want to separate every one of those consonants. They need a vowel between them. And so those get really, really tricky. Because they may not know, they may not see that this W is actually attached to that vowel, and then they want to try to pronounce it, and then they're going to put a vowel after because it needs one between the what and the but. So that can be a bit of a problem. Also, whenever you're looking at plurals, dogs may come out doggies because they really want to put that a syllable between the G and the S. And so you end up with doggies instead of dogs, which which is cute, but so that's a problem that you're going to have, that they may have, where they're trying to insert vowels in between consonants because their language doesn't have them. If you're lucky enough to get somebody who's done most of their education in French, it's going to be a little bit easier because they've already been presented with all of the pronunciation joys that come out of French, because they make a bigger mess of their pronunciation than we do. So, if you have somebody who has done most of their academics in French, it makes this a little easier. They're more comfortable with consonant blends, but they often do speak English with a French accent. There are a few consonant switches or consonant issues that you're going to come up with. L and R often are interchangeable, and so lead and red are interchangeable, lead and read are interchangeable. They may switch back and forth because they may not hear a difference between the two. And so that's something that you're going to need to think about as you're working, because a lot of languages have trouble with la and ra.
B and B also?
B and P tend to be the combination that's the bigger problem. You also will get a rolled or a trilled R, because it typically is. That's going to be similar to what you were going to run into with Spanish speakers, where they like to ra those R's. And so if you do get them to break apart, lead and read, it may be lead and read. Okay, and so yes, you've now distinguished between lead and read, but read's still not right. Okay. So that's something that you may have to run into. You may have a problem with dropped H's, similar to what we think of as that stereotypical Cockney H, where hard becomes ard, harm becomes arm, head becomes ed, where that, particularly with initial H's, that just get dropped. Then you have the GK switch, thing becomes think. This tends to be particularly true with final G's, where you get a K out of it. They kind of harden that gut into a K, and so and you see it a lot with the in the ing ending on a word, where ing becomes ink. So you have that switch. B and P, so they're switching one plosive for another, the B and the P, which are very slight differences in how you create the two, but the sounds are problems that they kind of switch in and out. And then a ch often will jump to a j sound, so jance instead of chance. So you get a bit more of a j at the beginning. And then you also have the sh just replaced down to a s. Okay? But if you look at that problem, we're really looking at finding a way to get around the consonant blend, and we also were dropping an H. And so you kind of have those two problems kind of connecting in there together. It's easier to just go so instead of show, because I don't have to deal with that consonant blend. And you'll also see that with like thra. The th usually isn't too much of a problem. You usually are able to get that, but you may not get the thra. Okay. And so you have 3 elementary. So again, I'm missing H. Okay. Or it's possible it could also go to Z. Okay. So the R is what was dropped. Okay. So those are going to be the biggest issues that you're going to deal with out of those, the Central African languages. Now, as you move north or south, or particularly if you move northeast, language groups changes drastically, and these rules don't apply anymore. As you're looking at the Saharan African languages, a lot of those are going to be more in the Berber and Arabic family, including all the way over into Ethiopian Somalia. Those are in a different language family, and so the rules are quite different. As you're moving down the country, moving down into Angola, Namibia, South Africa, that language family also changes, and so you're more likely to hear clicks and tones interchanged, and that's a very different family as well. So the rules don't apply there. Okay. Questions for me?
More of an observation, I think. I just wondered if you had anything to input. My student can read English aloud quite well. But when he speaks, it's very hard to understand what he's saying.
Okay.
And I guess when he's reading, he's got something to help him with pronunciation. When
He has the visual cues.
he's got a visual cue to help him. But when he speaks, it just gets lost. I can't understand him half the time.
Okay.
And it's such a huge difference between his ability to read English is quite good. I mean, very good. Not perfect, but really. But when he speaks, I don't understand what he's saying. There's a big gap there.
Right.
And it's more of an observation. I don't know whether there's something going to come out of it. I guess because he's got those visual cues that he can't
Right.
say.
So, is there a difference in speed? Whenever he's
Yes.
talking to you, it
Yes.
gets faster.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's going to be the
Yes.
first thing that I would say. I would tell him flat out, you need to slow down,
Yes.
because as you're speaking quickly, we're not understanding you as much.
Okay, that's a good
So
tip.
I would start with speed.
Okay, that's a good tip.
He can build the speed back up whenever he's
Speed. Okay, that's a good idea.
and have him say something, then have him write that same thing down, then have him read it off. And then as he's doing that, record it and play it back to him.
Okay, have him say something,
Have him say it,
write it
down, then have him read it.
read it, and then record it.
And if you can record it both times,
Yeah,
having him just say it, and then have him read
Yes.
it back and record it, and listen to those two back to back, and have him see that this is what we're hearing. Because a lot of times he's probably not hearing what we're hearing.
Oh, that's a very, very, I'm glad I brought that up. That's a very, very good idea.
Yeah.
Very, very good idea.